presentation of SimWorld Sports.
Good afternoon and welcome to Houston for the first of our two semifinal games in the Fatal Four for the SimWorld High School Hoops Championship. I am Marsh, joined in the booth tonight by B-Ron. B-Ron, welcome to the second of two massive games, or the first of two massive games here tonight.
Thank you, Marsh, and thank you, y'all here. This is going to be a fun one. I'm so excited. We got a big matchup in this one. Real excited for this one. Let's get it going.
Pacific Northwest and Chicago will be our two teams facing off against one another with the opportunity to advance to the championship game. Chicago in the white, Pacific Northwest in the red. Chicago takes the opening tip, Gerald Carroll, and this will be a very diverse matchup between two teams that have great guards, also two teams that have, and the potential for matchup could be elite bigs. Cody Johnson, fresh off a 43-point masterpiece that he pulls down the board in the Great Eight to get Pacific Northwest on. Krimmer had 17 rebounds in the Chicago advancement. And what's your key right now for both sides to pull off this?
I think the key for Pacific Northwest, in my opinion, is getting both Childs and Johnson going. If both of those kids can get hot and start off really well, they should be in for a good night. And for Chicago, I think it all starts with their defense, really. If their defense can slow down DJ Childs and Cody Johnson, they could have this one.
Rose breaks the scoring off with an inside layup there. Now a corner three, or no, they're going to call it a deep two for Pacific Northwest, and gets them on the board as well here. Less than 2 minutes into the game, just about a minute and a half going. Childs had a great semifinal, rather quarterfinal matchup for Pacific Northwest. 10 points, 10 assists, but he scored his 10 points on 2 for 11 shooting, B-Ron. Is that something that you expect to carry over till tonight, or do you anticipate that he should be able to break out of that kind of slump that he's in?
You know, I'm going to give you a non-committal answer, and I'm going to say that it very well could, just because of the Chicago defense and how tenacious it can be. With Gerald Carroll and Jay Carvel guarding in the backcourt there, could be a problem for Childs.
Chris Campbell turns the ball over, headed the other way after Cody Johnson decided to take a jumper from about 7 feet out rather than pound inside on the smaller big. And Ian Krimmer with the block on Johnson. The follow-up won't go. Johnson now 0 for 3 to begin the game. And at the other end, Chicago cannot make them pay as Campbell's corner three won't fall.
I'll tell you what, though, it's exactly what you want to see from Krimmer, though. Not being afraid of Cody Johnson. He's one of my favorite bigs in SimWorld, but you can't be afraid of a kid like that, despite his size. And so far, Krimmer's shown he's not.
Drive, kick, triple falls there for Pacific Northwest. I believe that was Calvin Foster who hit that three for Pacific Northwest. Their first lead early on here as we approach the 5-minute mark. Campbell now driving. It's inside the paint, kicks out to Krimmer.
Krimmer and Johnson matching up. Back him down.
Harvell, the three to answer, won't fall. Rebound goes to Johnson. Good off-ball screen to free Harvell. Harvell played well in the quarterfinal victory for Chicago, as did Gerald Carroll, who has proven to be one of the better shooting wings here in SimWorld High School Hoops, though it's Cody Johnson making his first basket in 4 attempts as we close in on the 4:30 mark. And Pacific Northwest off to a great start, B-Ron. What are they doing well in your opinion? And at the same token, what is Chicago struggling to get in?
I think Pacific Northwest is really doing well in the ball movement area. Just in terms of the speed they're moving the ball, I think it's also always a good key to have. And getting the ball in low to Johnson, I think it's going to be a big part of that too. Despite him missing, his first basket in the first 4 attempts there, but he got one to go. And as far as Chicago, I think they just need to start making their shots. It's the main issue right now.
Yeah, Chicago has missed 2 wide open threes, one from Harvell, one from Campbell. Campbell's came as the corner three variety. Harvell from the top of the key, but off of a screen, both of them pretty wide open. Krimmer now trying to back down on Johnson, gets into paint, and is rejected by Johnson. Rebound headed the other way.
Get that out of here, young man. Not today. Not right now, anyway, at least.
Benjamin Nicholson in the corner. Off ball screen. Free up Childs. Won't get the ball, and that's going to be a rebound for Krimmer. They've done a good job of keeping Cody Johnson uninvolved in the play, and into the paint goes Carroll for his first attempt and first bucket of the afternoon.
Good start for Carroll. First shot. You want it to be an easier shot, and those layups, even though that was a tougher one, always want those to fall early to get you going.
As Benjamin Nicholson answers on the other end, and you can see the shooting percentages. 5-point game. That difference is just 2 baskets for Pacific Northwest.
You think it'd be higher, though, with Chicago only shooting 25%.
Well, there's an inside feed to Campbell, and that'll get that percentage up, cuts the lead back down to 3. A fantastic feed from Krimmer to find the cut in Campbell.
Absolutely.
That will bring a timeout from Pacific Northwest, our second of the first quarter. And with that, we will take our first break of the afternoon. We'll be back in just a few.
Welcome home.
Mom, Dad, this is Cindy.
Cindy, yes.
So nice to meet both of you.
Nice to meet you finally. Travis has told us so much about you.
All good things, I hope.
Yes, of course.
Lord.
Please,
Thank
welcome.
you.
Oh, Mom, no.
Dad, this is Shannon.
Oh, hi.
Shannon?
And this is Aaron.
Hey, cutie.
That is Jessica. Jenny, Sarah, Megan,
Hi.
Nicole, Elizabeth.
Acts. Use in moderation.
And welcome back to Houston, the first of 2 semifinal games tonight. Pacific Northwest and Chicago locked in a defensive battle here in the first quarter. Pacific Northwest holding on to just a 3-point lead. Cody Johnson, as he turns that over, he has had a struggling start. 1 of 4 shooting from the floor in that latest turnover. And held off the glass by Ian Krimmer.
He has been quiet to begin the game for sure, and that's, as I said earlier, could be a problem for Pacific West tonight.
Missed there from Drew Collins, and a triple falls to tie the game. The first made 3 for Chicago. Rebound by Logan Rice to keep that possession going. But we have a quick drive on the other end. Carter Hines out, called for the foul. And that is a non-transition opportunity that Kenny May just turned into a transition fast break opportunity instead there.
I tell you what, though, the full court press did not work in their favor. Luckily, it's only going to be a free throw instead of an easy 2 points.
And Byron, what's your take on full court press? We see quite a few teams here in SimWorld High School hoops using the full court press to mixed results. We don't see really many, if any, 8-second to 10-second violations. Is this a process or a coaching approach that you think is actually beneficial for teams?
I don't want to say it's not beneficial or it is. I think that all depends on how you think of it as a coach. But I will say that most high school teams do run press, and they're very press heavy. Do I think it works all the time? Absolutely not. But how you beat the press with ball movement. And if you gotta have guys who can get rid of the ball quickly, sense danger, get rid of it quickly. That's how you beat the press.
Kenny May splits his 2. Into the game comes Derek James, replacing Cody Johnson, who, as we mentioned, off to a quiet night after that eruptive 43-point performance that got Pacific Northwest here.
Yeah, and that was a huge game for Cody Johnson, and it came at the expense of DJ Child's performance, as we mentioned earlier at the top of the broadcast.
Neither of those two have really gotten going, but for Pacific Northwest, their defense has kept Drake Harvell and LeGerald Carroll from dominating as well. And Chicago, of course, has 5 starters in the top 25 of either the junior or senior rankings. Pacific Northwest, just the 2 in Johnson and Childs, though, ranked 6th and 8th, respectively, in the class of 2022. So while not having quite as many ranked talents, the high-end talent, you could argue, for Pacific Northwest is the far superior one.
And, I think we
passed out the foul there real quick, Byron. That's a shooting foul on Kevin Falcone. They'll send Logan Rice to the line. Go for it.
Yeah, and I remember coming into the season, we had talked about looking at these rosters. The Chicago team, we noticed, like you said, they had 3, 4 ranked players at the beginning of the season, we thought, okay, maybe this team's going to be a top tier team. It didn't work out that way. They were very inconsistent throughout the year, but here in the tournament, they have shown to be the complete opposite of inconsistent. Every night they've came out and they have imposed their will on the other team, and that's been great to watch.
Well, you mentioned it. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Chicago went to multiple SimWorld tournament title games. I think it was 3 of them, if my memory serves me correctly. But they lost all 3. They were one of just a few teams to make multiple, one of even fewer to not have reigned victorious in any of them. So while the upset was certainly massive over Mid-Atlantic, to get them here in the round of 16, it wasn't so far-fetched. And I think you can make the argument that Chicago being ranked 10 and Pacific Northwest being ranked 6, I think there's a reasonable case that those 2 rankings could be flipped.
You could definitely make that case, and, you know, I think that's a valid argument to have, but who knows, maybe a better season from Chicago could have had them in that spot.
Miss on the other end. Side, Chicago trying to dominate in the paint, and Drew Collins, good spin to get into the paint, can't get that one to fall. Headed the other way is Derek James.
Yeah, nifty spin move there inside, just couldn't quite get the bucket to finish it off though.
Yet another turnover for Chicago. Chicago is a very perimeter-centric game. Carter Hines Allen to the paint, won't get that one to fall either. 2 consecutive good looks for Chicago. They haven't been able to capitalize on. Pacific Northwest, though, doing the same, and a foul call on Jamal Harper. That'll send Derek James.
Yeah, they're getting to the basket. Both teams are on the last few possessions, have worked their way inside to get good looks, just have not finished them. It's leading to fouls, which you want, you know, slow down the game, make your free throw, get your easy points out of the way. But at some point, those layups have got to start falling.
Do you think either of these 2 teams can survive a win here tonight if they don't start hitting points in the paint?
I think that would be more so a concern for Pacific Northwest and Chicago. I say because Chicago has some shooters on their team. Mostly, you know, Gerald Carroll, Jay Carvel, those kids can shoot the ball from range. Whereas I don't think Pacific Northwest really has the players besides a couple or one, you know, DJ Childs mostly, who can take and make those shots with any sort of consistency. So it could be a problem, yes, but I think the long distance game is going to favor Chicago.
You mentioned Childs as a 3-point threat. He's struggled this season, shooting 27.4% from deep. They actually only have 2 players on their team. That would be Benjamin Nicholson, who's in the starting 5, and Calvin Foster, somewhat often used bench player. 2 of them both 40% shooters. We close in 20 seconds left here in the first quarter. Chicago takes the lead right back.
Still got time to get the lead back though, with 10 seconds left in the quarter, but oh boy.
Steal for Collins, headed the other way. 8 seconds, driving to the paint, basket falls. That will be Steven Larson to push the lead to 3 for Chicago. But at the other end, transition bucket for Derek James. No support from Chicago. And that'll be the way we close the first half. A late bucket for Pacific Northwest has us at 14-13. Welcome back to Houston. We are ready to begin the second quarter of Chicago Pacific Northwest. Chicago holding a 1-point edge thanks to a last-second Derek James layup by Pacific Northwest after a Chicago make. Byron, first 8 minutes are in. What's your immediate takeaways and immediate reaction from the first quarter?
Well, honestly, I'm very surprised by how fast this game's being played by Chicago and how the lack of scoring from the players you expect to be scoring and the mark making on this game is not really much at all. Cody Johnson, DJ Childs, Trey Carvel, Gerald Carroll, those kids aren't doing much right now. It's the other guys for both teams.
And in a situation like that, who does that, as Jamal Harper buries a nice little soft lay-in, who does that benefit, Chicago or Pacific Northwest, when your stars aren't getting going? I
think it benefits Chicago more right now. I'm saying this as somebody who picked Pacific Northwest to win this game. I think that does benefit Chicago more, as of right now anyway.
River Rose's jumper won't fall. It's been a quiet. You mentioned the stars as Lacherald Carroll gets in on the action there, and that's quickly headed the other way. Jamal Harper to Carroll for 3. It falls. Chicago to take their first lead, and that'll bring us to a Pacific Northwest timeout. And what I was about to say is, Lacherald Carroll's been awfully quiet. Just 1 basket, 2 points in the first quarter. Quickly makes up for that here in the second. How important is it going to be for him to play well for Chicago to win?
Yeah, it's going to be very important for him to play well. In all the games in the tournament, at least, I feel like he has been the focal point, the guy who's led the team in points every single night and every single one of their wins. So I feel like if he does not play up to his usual self tonight, they very well could see their run end here in the Fatal Four.
It would be fatal for Chicago, but they've had a pretty impressive run. Chicago has none more impressive than the victory over Mid-Atlantic. Do you see some similarities between that matchup with the Mid-Atlantic squad and this Pacific Northwest team?
In terms of how they're handling the bigs of Pacific Northwest, yes, I do. Because Cody Johnson right now is impacted is so minimal, that was one of the keys in that game against Mid-Atlantic. Now, of course, we know Jameson Johnson's going to get his, yes. But it was the other players in that game who weren't able to do much. So I think that when you can slow down a guy like Cody Johnson, that does wonders for you at Chicago.
DJ Childs won't be held down for long as he bottoms a 3 to answer Carroll's at the other end, and we're back to a 1-point game with 6:30 left. Campbell drives to the paint, foul called on Childs. That'll give Campbell an opportunity to get to the line. A 92% free throw shooter is Campbell, the 25th ranked junior out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, still unsigned.
Look at that. Mars coming in with the scout facts. I love it.
Take a break.
Somebody's got to do it.
2 shots.
You know, one of the things that I have been really impressed with all season from all these teams, really, is how well a lot of these kids shoot free throws at such a high percentage, it feels like. I know there's always going to be those kids that don't, but I feel like the ones who do that well are always going to have spots on a roster somewhere.
Campbell hits the first one, and it is one of the few traits that can carry over quite well the rest of your game, but they're called free throws for a reason. Certainly need to be able to bottom them when you have the opportunity. And we saw
Absolutely agree.
On the highest stage, the Celtics unable to do that in their Game 5 loss to the Warriors. And so far, so good for Chicago in a equally monumental game for them as Cody Johnson powers.
There we go.
A equally monumental tongue-in-cheek for anyone thinking. Carvel drives to the paint, double comes from Johnson. Gets a sliver of room and finishes inside.
That's a tough finish there from Harvell. You don't get those kind of looks like that very often that come. And well, it wasn't an easy look, so props to him for getting it to go down.
Harvell tucking it alley-oop to Johnson will fall.
Wow.
Johnson quickly, that's the second consecutive possession that he has gotten to the paint on a phenomenal feed from the outside. And he is starting to get going, which is never a good thing, but now it's a block on the other end. Chicago now struggling to contain the paint, and a foul called on Harvell will send Benjamin Nicholson to the line, and we're seeing Pacific Northwest, after being outscored in the paint in the first quarter, taking a point to get inside, and it looked like Harvell arguing that call, but it'll be 2 shots for Nicholson nonetheless.
I think that's going to be a good thing to keep up with if you're Pacific Northwest in this quarter. Trying to get inside and assert your dominance there, because that also leads to opening up the outside as well. If you can get shots inside the fall, it brings the defense into collapsing on the big guys on the inside, kick it out to the perimeter shooters, they might get some to fall, and then it starts to snowball from there. Who knows?
Benjamin Nicholson to the line, the senior out of Redding, California. Averaging 7.8 points, and one of those aforementioned deep threats for Pacific Northwest, 44% shooter from beyond the arc. Hits 2 to give Pacific Northwest the lead back in what has been a back and forth, tightly contested affair. No lead larger than 4. That'll be Chicago's. Carroll gets a screen off of Krimmer.
And that's what you expect in these sorts of games. These teams are here for a reason, I feel like. And I think blowouts at this stage are going to be few and far between, unless, of course, you are Southeast, who, as we saw Monday, completely obliterated their opponent.
Excuse me, Carroll, rather, can't get the shot to fall. And at the other end, it is DJ Childs. He's up to 7 points, 3 of 3 from the floor. He's rebounding well from that 2 for 11 performance in the quarterfinal, and that will lead to a Chicago timeout. Pacific Northwest on a bit of a run. We will use that opportunity to take a step aside. We'll be back with the rest of the first half. Welcome back to the second quarter. Pacific Northwest on a bit of a run. 8-2 run, in fact, to flip a, 6-2 run to flip what was a 4-point deficit at one point, now into a 3-point lead over Chicago. They've done that thanks to their stars starting to show up after a quiet first quarter from both Cody Johnson and DJ Childs. Childs has hit a pair of buckets. He's got 5 points in the quarter. Johnson has 2 buckets and 4 points in the quarter. And we talked about if this becomes a game of star versus star, Chicago doesn't have the elite ranked stars that Pacific Northwest has, and those elite rankings are starting to show up. It'll be on Chicago to get Harvell and Carroll going. Carroll strips a 3 on cue.
Right in his face, too. Contested shot. Gerald Lato Carroll does not care at all.
Carroll now 2 for 2, both coming from that corner, but it's Childs quickly down the other end, and the lead back to Pacific Northwest.
Wow, that's a way to make a statement and get the lead back for sure.
It's Campbell working. Julie Gerald Carroll. Carroll over to Harvell. Harvell gets a screen from Carroll up, and then
it's a dunk parade out here, man. My goodness.
I've seen quite a few, Byron, guard or guard wing screens here from Chicago. They haven't worked to engage Ian Krimmer and Cody Johnson in the pick and roll, as Ian Krimmer there, a breakdown, deciding to go for that block, left Cody Johnson wide open to get that rebound, leading to eventually 2 points for Pacific Northwest.
Sometimes the aggressive play there And not always the best one. Sometimes getting in position and getting the block out is better than go for a block.
The Rose step back won't fall. Rebound Johnson. Johnson working his way up, nearly halfway to a double-double. As is Childs, who has 7 points, 4 assists. 9 points now. And 4 assists.
Oh, that's a mismatch. Take him.
Inside. Campbell has no answer for Cody Johnson. And the number 6 ranked recruit in the class of 2022, Cody Johnson, has given Chicago now a 4-point deficit they'll have to look to overcome.
You know, Chris Campbell's 5'10", 165, if I'm reading that right. That's mismatch if I ever saw one.
And the foul comes on Johnson as Harvell uses the step back pump fake to get Johnson out of position before driving to the paint. We haven't seen foul trouble play a massive role in SimWorld High School hoops, but it's still something to keep an eye on, especially for a Pacific Northwest team that relies so heavily on both Childs and Johnson.
Read my mind. That was just gonna make a comment about foul trouble. I think both teams need to do more of that, going at the star players and try to get them in foul trouble and get them out of the game for a bit of time, so that way your guys can start to work a little bit more on the reserve players.
Some lineup changes on both sides. The Joe Carroll steps out for Chicago. In comes Jamal Harper. The other side, though, Pacific Northwest keeping Childs and Cody Johnson in.
Now's the time for Childs and Johnson to continue to get their mojo going with some of these reserves in the game, I think.
Cody Johnson gives it to Childs. Childs powers through, cannot get it to go. Two-hand slam won't fall.
That's the worst. I gotta go back to play defense, too.
Harvell gets it to fall and the lead back to Chicago. A 5-0 run for Chicago. What looked like maybe Pacific Northwest Byron was catching momentum, and instead lead switches hands yet again, and it'll do it one more time.
Right
Pacific
back.
You see there's 7 lead changes, and we still have 2 minutes left in the opening half, so potentially more to come, though. Child strips that away from Chris Campbell. Headed in the other direction, one-on-one, up, and oh, Campbell tries to draw the foul, but the acrobatic finish from Childs.
That's one of the flashiest finishes we've seen, I think, all tournament.
Val can't get the mid-range jumper floater to go. Childs operating against Chris Campbell. We'll get to the paint. Harvell will pick him up, and a block from Logan Rice.
Good help defense there from Rice, coming over to slide and get his hands up, really, to block the shot.
Harvell's attempt to tie it back up won't fall. Rebound Johnson up to Childs and ups inside, and that'll be a 5-point lead for Pacific Northwest yet again. As
he gets lead in the game for either team, yeah?
Yes, Kevin Falcone finishes there. And you are correct. This 5-point lead, the largest of the game. Harvell looking to cut into it, won't fall. Chance to add yet again, and they will. Another bucket, and it's part of an 8-0 run that Pacific Northwest has gone on here late in the second. With LeGerald Carroll out, by the way. And it's back to a 7-point lead, or up to a 7-point lead, rather, Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, I think Carroll is probably the best defender on the Chicago team, and with him being out, Pacific Northwest is actually eating real well out here. 8-0 run.
Grimmer had a wide open Jamal Harper, missed him there. And instead, that'll be an opportunity to push to 9 will fall, and Chicago, should they want it, can take the last shot.
May as well hold on to it for the best look you possibly can, unless you get a good one right here.
The look won't fall, but that will do it for our first half. The 8-0 run to finish it for Pacific Northwest, and it is a 7-point lead at halftime. We'll be back after this. And welcome back to Houston for the second half of our first of a double-header in the SimWorld High School Hoops National Tournament. Chicago trailing Pacific Northwest 40-33 after an 8-0 run by Pacific Northwest to end the opening half in the final 2 minutes. Byron, what needs to change for Chicago to get their way back into this game?
I think it all starts and ends with Chicago's defense. When the Gerald Carroll left the game late in that second quarter, that was when Pacific Northwest really started to go on their run. The 8-0 run to end the quarter there. So starts on the defensive end.
Well, a three from Calvin Foster has pushed the lead to double digits. This is now the largest lead of the game. Carroll, open three, gets it to go right back. That ends an 11-0 run that Pacific Northwest had been at.
Gerald Carroll strikes again. He's got to keep doing more of that, though, if they want to have a chance of getting back in this game and cutting this lead down, which I think they will, honestly.
Childs operating inside, and that'll be a block by Ian Krimmer, but the ball apparently hits the end line. That'll be Pacific Northwest ball as we get another look at a Gerald Carroll block from the first half.
You know, I had spoken to Krimmer earlier in the day, and he said he was not concerned with the matchup against him, between him and Cody Johnson. He knows what his defense can do, and that they're there to help him out. So far, I mean, they did that to begin the game for sure. Just have to keep that up all the way through.
Ball goes to the corner. Top stolen by Chris Campbell, headed the other way. Driving to the paint, that'll fall, and it is back to a 5-point game. A quick 5-0 run, back-to-back buckets for Chicago. And to no one's surprise, they fought their way back into this thing, down by as many as 10 earlier in the quarter, just about a minute and a half ago, but Childs answers on the edge.
Childs is so quick off the ball, and I think that's why, one of the reasons why he's able to get those easy looks like that. He's always moving, always finding an open spot somewhere and taking advantage of it.
Miss from Rose, the rebound from Krimmer, but great defense by Cody Johnson keeps that one from going. Now Cody Johnson on the other end shows them how it's done in the lead back to 9. We've seen tradings of miniature runs here, Byron, throughout the day, 4 to 5 points at a time. It's that 10-0 run from the Pacific Northwest, rather 11-0 run between the end of the first half and the start of the second that is proving to be the difference in what has been otherwise a pretty competitive basketball.
I agree, and it's getting to the point now where Chicago can't afford to trade baskets like that with this Northwest team. They can't afford to do that because trading does you no good. You might have to have yourself a run of your own, 11-0 run, 12-0 run. They really have to cut this lead down. So consider that, Chicago.
Certainly, they'll need some type of run over some extended period of time to get their way back into this.
And
as we see, go for it.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, what do you think Chicago has to do to start a run like that? Since we're on topic of runs here.
Well, they need to take care of the basketball. They've done a pretty poor job of keeping the basketball, or at the very least, maintain or preventing fast break opportunities. And while Pacific Northwest hasn't scored a bunch of fast break points, what they have done is gotten out into the open, and they've created fast break type of looks. That's why Cody Johnson has been so effective after the first quarter, in which he was operating out of a lot of half-court sets. We've seen him in space off of runs that have just not been able to be slowed down by Chicago, and we see there that's a transition opportunity from Pacific Northwest to push it to 11.
Yeah, and to comment on that too, some of those runs, like we've seen, they haven't come off of just typical steals and transition. They have come off of inbounds, where the press doesn't work and it gets beat, and then Cody gets free down low, or Childs just runs free.
Harvell buries a three off the feed from Campbell. It's back to an 8-point game, and Pacific Northwest, in an attempt to prevent any type of offensive flow, calls timeout, and we will take a timeout. Be back with 5:12 left in the third quarter. Welcome back to Houston. Chicago trying to fight their way back into this game after trailing by 11 earlier in the quarter. They got it to within 5, but it's been Pacific Northwest and Cody Johnson who buries a triple, and the lead is back to double digits.
Cody Johnson hitting threes out here? Oh boy. Uh-oh.
Becomes more and more dangerous by the day, and a block on Harvell on the other end. Loose ball to Carroll. Carroll, get eye from deep.
You know, to go back to that Cody Johnson 3 for a minute there. Well, hang on a second.
Great Harvell on the steal of Childs. Up in, can't get it to fall. Looking for a foul there, plenty of contact. Instead, it's a 3 at the other end, and it's buried. And Pacific Northwest not allowing Chicago to generate any type of momentum.
Absolutely not. Any time they get a basket, they get one right back. It's so fun to see these teams go at it right now.
Calvin Foster, that one. Here comes Johnson up and through the contact from Krimmer. And the lead to a game-high 13. And Cody Johnson and DJ Childs have both scored extremely efficiently. Johnson, as you saw there, 8 of 12. Meanwhile, DJ Childs has hit 67% of his shots, but Harvell a step back 2, mind you. 14 points for Harvell.
Harvell definitely making his mark on the game, but man, Cody Johnson showcasing it all tonight.
They haven't been able to limit the biggest key, and Childs. A slam, and it's still a 13-point lead. 15 points from DJ Childs. He does have 1 triple. Otherwise, all of his points coming from the paint. But what we've seen from Chicago when we saw their deep 2 won't fall for Carroll, when they pulled the upset over Mid-Atlantic, they let Jamison Johnson and they let Eric Dillard cook. They combined for 47 points, each scoring 20+. However, no one else except Randy Orton scored more than 6 points. Orton had 8. They have not been able to keep bench players for Pacific Northwest shut out in that same capacity as we've seen. Calvin Foster, Benjamin Nicholson, Derek James at times all come in, step up, and make big contributions and scoring contributions right now for Pacific Northwest.
Yep, and that's the big reason right now anyway, one of them, as to why Northwest has the lead they do right now. Like you said, if those other kids can get going, plus Johnson and Childs, even if it's just a small contribution, it's going to be enough.
Harvell gets the bucket, and again, Pacific Northwest, they're calling early timeouts even before Chicago can find momentum and generate a run. They're taking a page out of the Steve Kerr coaching playbook and Greg Popovich before him, of any time there just seems to be momentum on the other side, they'll take a step to make sure it's stopped. And while we have this timeout, what we'll do is also remind you we have a fantastic second game coming up. Southeast takes on 16th ranked Miami, who pulled an incredible, improbable upset of top-ranked New York. Southeast now the only top 4 team left standing. Pacific Northwest the 6th ranked, as we have seen big blue blood, or at least single-season blue blood, fall time after time with Mid-Atlantic, with Washington, and now, fatefully, New York.
Yeah, let me tell you something. If you'd have told me at the beginning of the season New York was not going to be in the championship game, they were playing as well as they are, I'd have laughed at you.
Certainly been a shocking exit, and that began with Gulf Coast and Seattle. Seattle pulled the upset in round 1 and then exposed some potential flaws in the New York win. New York was trailing with just 2 minutes left, had to use a late run to get that upset, and then it all kind of unraveled when they took on Miami. They couldn't contain either of the talented Miami guards, as that one won't fall for Harvell. The bounces off of Pacific Northwest will stay. Chicago, another opportunity to cut it to within 10.
And just to talk about Miami for a second, they've had a few coaching changes this season, but the biggest one, I think, has to be the newest hire of Chad Smith. He's come in and really made his mark on his Miami team and got them playing at an incredible level right now.
And LeGerald Carroll, yet another three. The takeaway from this one is certainly that Chicago's LeGerald Carroll can play at a peak that few can get to from deep. The problem has been DJ Childs has been a problem of his own. 11 points in the first half. That total is up to, I believe, now 17 in the game. That matches what Cody Johnson has done. And Pacific Northwest Stars have arrived, and Jamal Harper can't get that one.
Yeah, they really got going there in that second quarter, and it's carried over here. And they haven't seemed to want to let off the gas, as they shouldn't.
Drake Harvell with the swat on the other end, leading to an opportunity and a mismatch. He'll drive to the paint. Can't get that one to fall. It's good defense there from Calvin Foster, rotating from the backside.
Great defense, like you said there from Foster. Getting the help out and coming in at the perfect time. Look at that shot.
And it's Derek James off the bench. Yet another. We talked about this earlier. Pacific Northwest, in order to win this game, they needed some support for their two ranked players. They've gotten that. Chicago, meanwhile, has not, as Harvell misses, and the lead at 12. Opportunity for a 2-for-1. Triple. Foster won't fall. Excuse me. Yes, Derek James rather won't fall. Rebound to Carroll.
Yeah, it's been the bench players and the, I don't want to call them the other guys, but that sounds so rude, but the other guys.
Mid-range falls there from River Rose, and the other guys have not been on Chicago's side in this instance. All their bench players have struggled to find rhythm. And a 10-point deficit is their greeting card as we near the end of the third quarter. Childs driving on Harvell. Step back, three-point opportunity at the buzzer. Gets it to go. I apologize, not at the buzzer with 5 seconds to play, but it's a 3-point, 13-point game. Carroll at the buzzer won't fall. And that's how we send it. Pacific Northwest has built a double-digit lead, threatening to run away with this one as we enter the fourth quarter with a chance at a championship game appearance on the line. And welcome back. We have 8 minutes to determine the first of our 2 national championship game attendees. Pacific Northwest, a healthy 13-point edge. And quickly, Crimmer, though, powers that one home off a feed from LeGerald Carroll. That is Crimmer's first basket of the game, as Chicago will look to overcome a double-digit deficit. 4 out and Cody Johnson for 2. And this deficit now back to third. Get it to go, steals the inbound pass. It's a 15-point game. And we talked about this team, the Pacific Northwest, needing support from the Stars. It has not necessarily been needed, as Cody Johnson and DJ Childs, although Childs turns it over there, have been playing out of their minds to give Pacific Northwest a 15-point edge.
They absolutely have, Martian. Let's not take anything away from them, but we do have to talk about the other kids who are doing their own part as well, being efficient with their shots, and that's what it's all about.
Well, they have been efficient. They haven't necessarily torn the ball off of its out of the building. I don't even know if that's a phrase, but
It is
what
now.
they have done at Pacific Northwest is they've limited the secondary players as well for Chicago. They've said,
Yep.
Gerald Carroll, are you going to beat us? As another 3 falls, and that pushes it to 16. They've said, Gerald Carroll, are you going to beat us alone? We don't think you can. And they've limited Ian Krimmer. He has 1 basket. They've limited their bench players, and they've been defensively dominant as another block on Harvell.
Yep, and it's been a joy to watch this really come together, because it looked like earlier in the game, it was going to be back and forth game, and eventually the Pacific kind of came out and said, you know what, enough of this.
Well, a follow-up there from Krimmer falls, and it has been a struggling performance from Chris Campbell and River Rose, and Ian Krimmer again, who just makes his 2nd basket. He's now 2 of 6 on the night. They have not gotten the type of support that they got in the upset win over Mid-Atlantic, where they did say, look, we're going to let you dominate Eden Stars. It got support performances. They just haven't gotten that same type of performance tonight against Pacific Northwest. And on top of that, they've allowed DJ Childs to break out of his slump. They've allowed Cody Johnson, after a slow 1 and 4 start, to get right back to where he was. Now, he's not going to hit 43 points, but he has been equally impactful tonight in this game.
He absolutely has, and when he is playing like this on an impactful level, not to the level like he did, in the last game, but this is still enough, clearly.
Well, that first shot won't fall for Childs. A surprising miss for him from the free throw line. Keeps the lead at 14. Now a chance to make it 15 yet again. That one falls now. Iran, this is not an insurmountable lead. There's 5:40 left. 15 points, you would assume, will be scored in this 4th quarter in general. But how much longer does Chicago have before they will need a run to make this thing happen?
I don't think they have too much longer to wait around, honestly, for that run to happen. I think the longer you wait, the worse it's going to get, in my opinion, for them, because I don't see Pacific Northwest slowing down anytime soon.
Cody Johnson just found his way easily into the paint on Ian Krimmer, and the lead is back to 15. And as you mentioned, now at 5 minutes left, the time is ticking, although Chris Campbell gets wide open underneath, and a good find from Krimmer to get the guard another basket. And we're also seeing for Pacific Northwest the general size of their team taking over. You look at DJ Childs has a size advantage over Chris Campbell. You look at, of course, Calvin Foster and Benjamin Nicholson have size advantages over Drake Harvell at the wing. It has not been a matchup that necessarily favors in terms of size, though Harvell gets open on a back cut with the feed from Chris Campbell, and the lead back down to 11.
Yeah, they're starting to get back in. I think that's going to be the key, though, for Chicago. Getting the ball movement, getting the moving without the ball, too, from your other players to get those easy looks like that.
Well, Cody Johnson Euros his way through a double team, and the lead is back to 13. Harvell to make it 10, he will. A pull-up triple just under the halfway point of the 4th quarter. Chicago has cut this lead back down to 10. That's 5 points. They'll need to double that output if they're going to make this comeback complete. Cody Johnson doing his best to prevent that one to go.
That's a tough one to not fall. I was expecting that to go in, where he's been shooting tonight.
Campbell to Carroll, or excuse me, to Rose to Carroll. Carroll operating against Calvin Foster. Kicks it out to Chris Campbell. Campbell for 3, gets it to go. It's a 7-point game with 3:20 to play. This is not quite over as Chicago making a rapid chase to make up some ground.
Yeah, they are turning this around very quickly here. And there's still time, obviously, for both things to happen, you know? They go on a run here, either team. I don't know, man. I think it's going to come down to the wire, I feel like.
The point of attack defense for Chicago has just simply not been there tonight as Childs gets into the paint yet again. But Ian Krimmer using a little reverse 5-1 pick and roll to get into the paint and get it back down to 7.
The old 5-1 pick and roll. Love to see it.
Always used. Here on the other end, though, a breakdown in defensive coverage. And that's Calvin Foster, the lead back to 9. And Chicago needing a defensive stop on the last 2 possessions. Unable to get either, and that'll bring a timeout out of them. 82-73. We will step aside real quick, come back with the final 2:22. Fourth quarter. Welcome back to Houston. Chicago trying to make up ground, though time is running out. They've gotten it to within 7. The lead now at 9 for Pacific Northwest with 2:22 left in our first of 2 semifinal games in the Fatal 4 of the SimWorld High School Hoops National Tournament.
Yeah, it has been a very fun game, full of ups and downs, and Chicago seems to be on the uptrend here late in the game, but they need a little bit more of it in order to make them close towards the end.
They'll need some type of defensive stop. Chicago will. They've been unable to get it on the last 2 possessions as they cut the lead to 7, but back-to-back defensive breakdowns allowed Pacific Northwest to get the lead back to a 9-point edge. Inbound coming here. They'll pretty much need to pitch almost a shutout for Chicago to make it, and they'll have to have some impressive shot making to go with that. Campbell finds River Rose. River Rose won't get it to fall, and that's not necessarily how you intend to start it. The Childs at the other end will be drawing a foul on Campbell, and the 90+% free throw shooter will have a chance to put it to double digits yet again. And you have to feel like, B-Ron, if they get it to that point, this one's all but over.
Yeah, it's getting to that point in the game where
Shooting 2.
those little things start to add up, and it gets that much more difficult for a team to get back into a game. So I definitely agree with you there, March.
11-point deficit. Excuse me, 9-point deficit up to 10. A chance to make it an 11-point deficit here. And don't forget, yet again, we have a second game of our doubleheader, Miami and Southeast. The winner will greet, in all likelihood, Pacific Northwest in our championship game on Friday night. A season that began in January, here in June, is just days away from crowning a champion.
First ever SimWorld High School champion, if I might add.
Indeed, the inaugural. Krimmer screens for Campbell inside to River Rose, and Rose gets that to fall. Right on cue, Pacific Northwest calling a timeout before Chicago can find a way to get momentum. Under 2 minutes to play, that'll be their first use timeout. They only have 1 left, as does Chicago. But a 9-point edge Is this, and I said it earlier, it's all but over. Is this actually over?
We've seen crazier things happen. I don't, with a game like this, I don't think it's really over until, you know, that final buzzer sound. Unless Northwest goes on a run here down the stretch and they really put it away. But I don't think it's enough quite yet.
This will be the final gasp of a Chicago season that included some impressive upsets in the SimWorld National Tournament. The, of course, most highlighted one would have been the victory over Mid-Atlantic, which one very few, if anyone, saw coming. Mid-Atlantic, a popular pick to be in the national championship game, if not win it all, but Chicago had to go through Atlanta to begin things, and then a good Charlotte squad, ranked 7th in the nation, before here to Pacific Northwest, where they will, it appears to be, eventually fall.
Yeah, their run to get here was not easy. Let's keep that in mind for perspective.
Run for Pacific Northwest has not been a cakewalk either. They went through Midwest, a good Donald DeFetti-led squad, and then took down the hometown Cinderella Houston team in the quarterfinals and hold on for just about everything as the lead back to 7. A stop here for Chicago, and things might get a little clenched for Pacific Northwest.
Looking dicey.
Headed the other direction. He gets it to Rose. Rose, pull-up jumper won't fall. You have to take a better one if you're River Rose. And the senior captain blowing a just absolutely fantastic opportunity, making an awful one, and then gets dunked on by DJ Childs on the other end.
Oh my goodness. All right.
That is one way for River Rose to end his collegiate career, or rather high school career. A disastrous jumper, and then tries one over Alvin Foster that won't fall either. And the 4th best player maybe on the Chicago team took it all in his hand. And it wasn't, it was a dunk again by DJ Childs. It wasn't Drake Carvel. It wasn't LeGerald Carroll, but rather River Rose taking down the stretch shots for Chicago and unsurprisingly failing to make any of them. And that will all but end it.
Yep, that's gonna put this one away. Where's Katie at?
Strangely enough, we're not even seeing LeGerald Carroll out on the floor right now as Jamal Harper is in.
You'd think that he'd be in for this. He would have been in, you know, past 2 minutes, but adjustment or lack thereof cost him down the stretch.
That block will do it. Jamal Harper, and really whatever happens on this possession is purely for a statistical point. A 3 from Drake Carvel makes it look like it might have been closer, but a second half that was dominated by Pacific Northwest will punch their ticket to Friday's national championship game, 88-80. Pacific Northwest, on the back of dominant performances from Childs and Johnson, are headed to the inaugural national championship game. We'll see you for that game on Friday, but be back here in just 30 minutes for Southeast and Miami. Victor meeting Pacific Northwest next.